All right, so today we're looking at Chapter 3, Section 5, which is slopes of lines. So hopefully a lot of this will be familiar. A lot of it you've probably heard of before, and obviously we're going to do some graphing, okay? So first let's talk about the basic definition of a slope of a line. It's just basically rise over run, okay? And if you have a coordinate plane, which you guys do, and you have 2 points, you can graph those 2 points, and you can basically count the slope, okay? So your slope is going to come in the form of a fraction. If you have a positive number, your slope is going to go up from left to right. And if you have a negative slope, it's going to go down. And then in the denominator is your run. So that's how much you go to the right. Okay? So basically, you're going to be given what we call 2 ordered pairs. So those come in the form of x1, comma, y1, and x2, comma, y2. Where there are 4 numbers in those spots. You have 2 numbers in these spots, 2 numbers in these spots. And so if you're going to if you have graph paper, you can plot them and count your slope. The other way to do it is to use something called the slope formula. Don't have a piece of graph paper, or you want to do it a little bit faster, you can do it what we call algebraically. And the formula starts with m equals. Anybody know the slope formula? That is y equals mx plus b. This one starts with m equals. Somebody's saying it over there, yes? Yes. So it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So basically you're going to take the y values and subtract them, then take the x values and subtract them in the denominator. The only tricky part is if you have some negatives. So if you subtract a negative, that's like adding a positive. So you just have to watch your signs, okay? But basically it'll work every time. All right, so let's talk about what your graphs are going to look like. So we're going to just quickly sketch 4 coordinate planes. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. Okay? So when you have 2 points, you graph them, you get a slope. There are 4 basic types of slope. So, like I told you right here, if it's going up from left to right, so there's your line, that's a positive slope. And you'll end up having 2 positive numbers, something like 2/3. Okay? If the graph of your line is going down, it's going to be a negative slope, something like negative 3/4. That means you go down 3 over 4. Then there's 2 special ones, okay? The third one is when your line is completely horizontal, okay? This is what we call a slope of, bless you, 0. It's going to be a horizontal line, okay? No slope. It's not going up. It's not going down. It's just flat, straight across. You're in the middle of the desert. You're not going up. You're not going down, okay? The 4th one is even stranger. It's what we call undefined slope. And it is completely a vertical line. That's when you have a 0 in the denominator. So if you end up with something like 3 over 0, that's going to be undefined. That 0 in the denominator makes it undefined. Versus this one, you would end up with 0 in the numerator, like 0/4. Okay? That means you don't go any up or down, and you would go over 4. And you would end up with this horizontal line. Okay? All right, so let's graph given 2 points and see if we can figure out the slope. So example number 1, I'm going to give you 2 points. The first one is at -2, 7. We'll call it G. And the second one is at 4, 2. We'll call it H. We need to find the slope. All right, so we're going to do it 2 ways. First way, we're going to graph it. All right, so for example number 1, we need to first put a point. Good. Can you see that all? Let me adjust that a little bit. Okay. First one, we're going to put a point at -2, 7. So that means go 2 to the left, 1, 2, and up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's our point. We'll call it G. The second point is at 4, 2. That means to go 4 to the right and up 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, up 2. There's our H. If you have a ruler, you can use a ruler. Draw your really beautiful straight line, put little arrows on the end. If you want to use your student ID card, that has a nice straight edge. Those help you draw really nice lines if you need it, okay? So for this one, we're going to count the slope. That means from this point to this point, we're going to count how many we go down, because clearly it's going down from left to right. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to call that -5 because we're going down. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the right. Okay? Because we're going down, that means our slope is negative. And we went down 5, so that's the numerator. And we went over 6, so that's the denominator. All right? Let's pretend you didn't have graph paper. You don't have graph paper, so you have to do it algebraically. Okay? So algebraically, let me fold this under and leave it up there in case anybody's still doing it. Algebraically, we're going to use that formula. There, where is it? There it is. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're going to say 2 minus 7 over the x's subtracted. So 4 minus -2. So this is what I was telling you is the only tricky part. Is sometimes you're going to be adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. Your calculator will do it for you, but most of you can do this kind of stuff in your head. So for the numerator, you're going to go 2 minus 7, which is -5. And then in the denominator, you're subtracting a negative, so I'm going to change it to plus plus. 4 plus 2 is 6. What you're going to notice is this answer and this answer are what? Same. Okay? You should have the same answers. All right? Any questions so far? All right, I got to move this up. You'll see it in just a second. Maybe. Because we got to graph another one. Okay. Let's do that. All right. So the next thing we need to talk about is comparing 2 slopes. Okay, so we just talked about how to find one slope. What if you have 2 lines and you need to compare their slopes? All right, there are a couple choices. First choice is to have parallel lines. They're going to have what kinds of slope? Anybody know? Same, yes, same slopes. So if one has a slope of 2/3, the other one is going to have a slope of 2/3. You're going to say they are parallel lines. There's another choice called perpendicular lines. Anybody know what kinds of slopes perpendicular lines have? Yeah, somebody said opposite, somebody said reciprocal. Put those two together and you are correct, okay? It's going to be what we call opposite or negative reciprocals. Okay? So if the first line has a slope of negative 4/3, the second line has to have opposite sign. So if this is negative, this one's going to be positive. And then reciprocal means to take that fraction and do what with it? Flip it over. So instead of 4/3, it's going to be 3/4. Okay? All right, that leads us to example number 2. So for example number 2, we're going to have 2 lines instead of 1. We're going to graph them, and we're going to see if they are parallel, perpendicular. The third choice is they could be neither parallel or perpendicular. Okay? So you can have parallel, you can have perpendicular, or you can have neither. All right? So here are the 2 lines. The first one has point U, which is at 0, 2, and V, which is at -1, -1. That's our first line. Then the second line is going to have X, which is at 3, 1, and Y, which is at -3, 3. So where did I put my little paper? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move this up. Here we go. Example number 2. So the first line has point U, which is at 0, 2. 0 means don't move any right or left, but you're going to go up 2 and put a point. That's U. B is at -1, -1. That means you're going to go 1 to the left and down 1. Put a point. We'll call it V as in Victor. Okay. You can see this line is going like this. Again, use a ruler, use your student ID. You can draw a nice straight line. But if you just want to count that slope, you're going to realize, okay, going up from left to right, so it's going to be positive. And then you're going up 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So 3 over 1 is the first line. Okay, now I'm going to do the second line in blue. Okay. So the first point, X, is at 3, 1. So we're going to go 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3, up 1. Call it X. And Y is at -3, 3. So 3 to the left and up 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Call that one Y. Draw in our line. And let's count the slope of the second line. So from Y to X, we're going down. Okay, so it's going to be negative, right? And we're going to go down 1, 2, and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So -2 over 6. Obviously they're not parallel, right? Because they're intersecting. So you want to check to see if they're perpendicular, right? So they should be opposite or negative reciprocals. Well, they have opposite signs, so that's a good start. Are they flipped fractions?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it, but some people are saying yes. Why? Because you can take that -2, 6 and reduce it to what?
1/3.
negative 1/3.